It was about 5 weeks ago. I had just been released from jail because I'm such a naughty. That's also the reason for my absence, by the way. Well, I was released, and as I was passing the gates, I was struck by the inevitable hopelessness of my situation. What would I do? How would I get by? All of these questions were buzzing around my head. So as I was walking, I was contemplating about my prospective sources of income. Sell weed, heroin, Diet Coke. God, that stuff's addictive. When I was suddenly approached by a mysterious man. He told me, what if I told you that there is a way to make just as much money with even less work and more income? What? I answered in shock. What could he mean? Just become a Let's Player, he said. Here, your first dose is free. Come on, try it. It's the thing that cool kids do nowadays. So, I'm gonna play Minecraft.
Okay, so let's do this. Okay, this doesn't seem to be Minecraft. Wolfenstein? Oh, well, that's nice too. What? Mein Kanzler? That was not how they addressed Hitler. And what the f***? He doesn't even have a beard. I'm done. This is not acceptable. I'm going to dig deep into this, and I'm going to find out who is responsible for this premature end of my Let's Play career. You are going to pay for this. So please don't pay too much attention to that stuff in the background. I know it's not as aesthetically pleasing as my back wall, but unfortunately I don't have that at hand right now. So Bethesda is arguably one of my favorite game publishers. Dishonored, Fallout, The Elder Scrolls, Doom. These titles have been very popular throughout the years for a reason. They are good games. If I ever get to make a video about a game publisher, I thought it would certainly be about Activision or EA with their loot boxes or the joke that Call of Duty has turned into. But I recently became aware of the dreadful atrocity, the heinous crime, the cardinal sin that they committed by cutting down Wolfenstein. And by the way, that is the correct pronunciation, not Wolfenstein. Please, the Americans, stop crippling our beautiful German language. It's not Mueller, it's Müller.
Get in, Mr. Mueller.
Müller.
Robert Mueller.
Müller! But I digress. So let's get back to Wolfenstein. The series began as a fun little 2D game, becoming a shaping force in the first-person shooter genre over the years, with Wolfenstein 3D in 1992. Over the years there have been quite a lot of these games, the newest installment being the new Colossus, which depicts a dystopian alternation of the post-World War II world. The story follows the main character William B.J. Blazkowicz, who tries to fight against the Nazis in this fictional timeline where they won the Second World War and conquered huge parts of the world, including the USA. But wait a moment, that is not the game that I saw when I was playing it. How comes? Well, in the German version of the game, the whole premise of the story is dramatically changed. That starts with the removal of all swastikas and other Nazi symbols, but it goes much further than that. As you could see in the beginning, Hitler is basically not Hitler. His name was changed to Heiler, which is just as subtle as absurd because it literally translates to healer. They also got rid of his signature beard and he's now addressed as Mein Kanzler, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of the address me as this and that scene.
Herr? Heiler? Wenn Sie mich ansprechen, sagen Sie Mein Kanzler. Verstanden? Haben Sie keinen Respekt vor Autorität?
Also, and this is a little harder to spot because you can only see it in a side-to-side comparison, but the mention of Jews in any context was basically removed.
No, mein Führer, sind Sie ein verkleideter Schurke, ein Jude? Ein verräterischer Jude!
Nein, mein Kanzler.
Sind Sie ein verkleideter Schurke? Ein Verräter! Ein niederträchtiger Verräter!
But it goes even further than that. Blazkowicz doesn't fight the Nazis, but instead just a nameless regime. His mother wasn't turned into the Nazis by his father, which is actually BJ's reason to kill him in the first place. But why did Bethesda go through the trouble of changing all that. I mean, those are massive changes that obviously required quite some work. And it's not like they made the whole game that way. They specifically developed a whole nother game for the German players. At this point, you might be asking yourself, especially if you're not from Germany, why the would I care about this? Germans can do whatever they want. And my answer to that is, these changes affect you as well. Just take the Call of Duty World War II multiplayer for example. You might have noticed that the multiplayer doesn't contain any Nazi symbols, even though the campaign clearly does. And the reasons are probably the same as for Wolfenstein. The German multiplayer had to be censored, so Activision just decided to censor it for everyone, for you too. Should we just live in a globalized world? And I find this topic interesting, so deal with it. But why does this censorship take place? Well, reasons can be found in the German. Hey, I know that this is not the most interesting topic, but bear with me, I'm gonna make it quick. After the rather unethical laws that the Nazis had proclaimed, Germany decided that it was time to pass some new laws. In reality, these laws weren't all that new, because pre-Nazi Germany actually had some quite decent laws, but they had to add a few things to ensure that history wouldn't repeat itself. And so there were a few changes that are unique to Germany to this day. You can take the pretzels, and you can take the Oktoberfest, but you can't take our past from us. So for instance, Germany is the only country that cannot ever not be a democracy by law. That is the reason why you can't just start a Nazi party, but also why you can't start a communist party. Communism is not democratic. And now, please take a wild guess what is illegal too. That's right, swastikas and all other Nazi symbols, as well as the Hitler salute and an old Nazi song, are all verboten as a matter of law. It's very, very thorough. I mean, I get why this is not allowed, but oh wait, I can't even show it to you. I don't want to go back to prison. And that's where the crux is at. Obviously, there are some exceptions to this for purposes of art, teaching, and, well, that's basically it. So now we need to find out, what is art? It's a simple question, but as it seems, the answer is not so simple. While movies have reached the status of art long ago, there still seems to be a controversy around video games. Just take the film critic Roger Ebert. To my knowledge, no one in or out of the field has ever been able to cite a game worthy of comparison with the great dramatists, poets, filmmakers, novelists, and composers. For most gamers, video games represent the loss of those precious hours we have available to make ourselves more cultured, civilized, and empathetic. Although I know where he's trying to go with this, I think his arguments are mostly shit. I mean, I'm sorry, but how high are the standards for something to be considered art? No one has ever showed him such a game. Well, I have seen a lot of movies that you wouldn't want to compare to that either. Also, don't you think that it's kind of odd that something has to pass this really high threshold to be considered art? Like, are all movies on IMDb with a rating of 8 or higher art and everything beneath is not? If I compare, let's say, the Emoji Movie to BioShock Infinite, I can certainly tell you which one of those is more artistic. Interesting characters, an immersive, compelling and elaborate story, and great gameplay accompanying it. The Emoji Movie really wins in every aspect, especially with that Candy Crush scene. I mean, that's just pure gold. That is true art. But in all seriousness, I can see why this or games like Tetris are not seen as art, but we certainly come a long way since that. The general definition of art says that it's a diverse range of human activities in creating visual, auditory, or performing artifacts, expressing the author's imaginative or technical skill intended to be appreciated for their beauty or emotional power. A lot of games nowadays are certainly created in such a way. The imaginative skill in telling a story, such as in Wolfenstein: The New Colossus, is really impressive, and it probably takes more technical skill to create such a game than in many other art forms. I think the true reason for this unequal treatment is, as is often the case, simple, dumb, prejudice. Films are just an established and accepted form of art, while video games are still kind of new. And a lot of older people seem to be incapable of forming an unbiased opinion, while they are unfortunately also the people responsible for the regulation. Game publishers don't really have it easy here in Germany. As per law, games with a primary focus on violence are actually not permitted. Although that kind of leaves me wondering why GTA isn't indexed. I mean, the infamous hot coffee mod that added adult content to the game is banned, so I guess selling drugs and violence are alright, but sex is not happening. Just like my life. But when it comes to Nazi stuff, it gets even weirder. Ever since Wolfenstein 3D was banned in the 90s, no game publisher has ever dared to release another game with those symbols, or the story was changed into absurdity, like in Wolfenstein.
Mein Kanzler?
Mein Kanzler!
Now, let me be very clear. I'm not arguing in favor of as many swastikas and Hitlers as possible. God, no. By the way, did you know that there are no Hitlers left on Earth? All relatives changed their names and made a pact to not have any kids, so they basically die out. Name explain. I learned a lot. But honestly, I'm not saying that we need more of that stuff, but I am arguing for the exact opposite. Artists, so game developers too, should be able to deal with the Third Reich and all of its horrific byproducts because it's such an important part of our history, especially for us Germans. Granted, telling a story about a group called the Kreisauer Circle fighting Nazis in a post-World War II scenario is kind of odd, but why not? It's a little like foundational research. You never know what good might grow out of it. The only thing we clearly don't want is that someone belittles or glorifies the Nazis. That is certainly not the case here. But if we look at this issue, we should probably remember that the creation of art free from censorship doesn't even exist for that long yet. For instance, did you know that city and state censorship ordinances existed for quite some time in the USA, banning the public exhibition of immoral films? In New York, for example, a state office tasked with reviewing and censoring films operated between 1922 and 1965. Isn't it incredible that pre-censorship existed in a liberal country as the US for such a long time? And if you Americans think that you are safe from that, you are. For now. In the Brown vs. Entertainment Merchants Association case from 2011, it was decided that video games are in fact protected speech under the First Amendment. But several of the court's justices suggested that the issue might need to be re-examined in the future considering the changing nature of video games. So watch out! But in the meantime, you can subscribe to this channel, sit back, relax, and watch my conclusion. I think this whole topic is pretty dumb. I'm not like, hey, it's this and that year, so how does this still exist? But I think we have arrived in an age of digital media that makes it more obvious than ever that we need to rethink our laws and attitudes towards the media. But hey, for now I'm just going to enjoy the advantages of globalization and play the international version of Wolfenstein on my Steam account. What? What do you mean that doesn't work? What kind of sick twisted joke is this? Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. Once again, subscribe and don't forget to leave a like if you want to see more. See you.